I was too scared to tell anybody.
When did it sort of cross the line to the point of no return?
Started off with things like pinching me, twisting a tea towel and whipping me, but it would actually leave like welts on my leg. The more violent type of it was at the very end of the relationship mostly, and that was when I was leaving him, and he knew that I was leaving him and he was losing control of me.
When it's switched from the love bombing to the manipulative and demeaning way that he was treating you, at that point in time, did you speak to anyone about it?
I didn't talk to anybody about it. He also isolated me from all my friends at this point, and he would just switch right back to that love and affection straight away. And I was just chasing that feeling the whole relationship.
Today, I spoke to a young woman who experienced things as a teenage girl that unfortunately happened too frequently. A lot of times these things are not talked about for a variety of reasons. Our guest, Anna Coutts-Trotter, is a courageous woman who as a 15-year-old was a victim of domestic violence by her boyfriend. Now this was a period in her life that should have been filled with wonder, but it was destroyed by a person that she trusted. The fact this type of abuse happened to Anna shows how easy it is for anyone to become prey to these violent predators. She kept what was happening to her as a secret from her high-profile parents, her family and her friends. But when it became undeniable, she spoke out and made the offender accountable. It wasn't an easy path for Anna to take, but she knew it was something she had to do. The experience has shaped her as a woman, and today she's speaking out and helping other survivors. As you'll find out with my chat with Anna, she's an impressive young lady. Anna Coutts-Trotter, welcome to I Catch Killers.
Thanks for having me, Gary.
Well, I've looked forward to having the chat. I've done my due diligence and having a look at what you've been doing with your time and what you've been through, and I find it quite interesting. Domestic violence in its form has had a lot of attention in the media of not recent times, over the last couple of years, sadly, because it's often results in the death of a partner by a male, female situation. But domestic violence, I didn't really look at domestic violence in the situation that you went through, and I know that's a feeling that you had as well, that as a 15-year-old girl, when you started to experience domestic violence, it's not the context we generally put domestic violence in, is it? It's normally married couple or people living together and fighting over whatnot.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the reasons why I didn't access support immediately, and why I didn't recognise myself as having experienced domestic violence, because when I looked around I saw that there were young people who were experiencing very similar things to me, but we weren't calling it domestic violence. We didn't know it to be domestic violence. And as you said, I wasn't married to him, I didn't have a mortgage with him, kids or anything like that, and so when I thought about domestic violence, those are the sorts of things I thought about. I wasn't thinking about teenage relationships and all of the kind of insidious forms of coercive control and domestic violence that I was experiencing at the time.
Well, I suppose as well, because you're 15 and you think you know about the world, but you know zero about the world really at that stage. So it's hard to put, there was no reference point for you.
Yeah.
It's not a situation where you've been through other relationships and realised, no, this is not what a relationship should be. So I could imagine how confusing it would have been for you at the time.
Yeah, and I think it was sort of, it's sort of dismissed really easily as being like, young love and, it's a first relationship and stuff like that. But it was, as you say, it was the first sort of relationship that I ever had, and it was kind of what I thought was normal for young people at the time. And, I look at my parents' relationship and other adult relationships around, and I knew that I wasn't experiencing that. I knew that that wasn't, what it was, but I didn't quite realise just how serious it was because I was so young, and I kind of... it just looked really different from everything else that I was seeing. And then my friends, the peers at my age, a lot of them were also experiencing very similar things, but we just didn't have a name for it, and we didn't identify it as being domestic violence at the time.
And I think from an adult's point of view too, you're looking at it in dramas in teenage love affairs, like, I don't want to live, I've broken up with my boyfriend or girlfriend and all that. You put it down to they're just being dramatic. You don't really see the situation evolve into something evil like it did with your situation, because you sort of dismiss it. Well, it's just kids being kids, learning about love.
Yeah, hormones pumping, first love and first heartbreak and all those things. And I think there was probably an element of that. And also my teachers, I've spoken to them since, and especially some of them were interviewed for the Australian Story episode as well, and hearing them talk about it. And obviously I was really emotional, and I kind of can remember that now. Like, I remember leaving classrooms sobbing. I remember leaving school, having panic attacks at school, throwing up from anxiety. I remember all of that. And I wonder what that kind of looked like to them. Like, if, as you say, it was like heartbreak and normal teenage relationships and things like that. And I think some of them probably knew that it was a bit more than that, and that there was something going on. But it's a really hard thing to talk to a young person about, and even if they had asked me, I would have completely denied it. I would have come up with stories to explain it away.
It down. I want to talk a little bit about that why that you didn't tell people about it, because I think that's an interesting thing and something that we all should look out for, where people at that age, young kids, teenagers, don't talk about it. Yeah. We're certainly in what's been portrayed in the media, coercive control laws coming in, people talking about domestic violence and all that. It's very much encouraging people to speak out about it, but we haven't sort of delved into the younger version of it with teenagers. In prepping for this, I watched the Australian Story that you referred to. It was quite interesting, and I want to speak about the Survivor Hub. And I see that you've surrounded yourself with some interesting people. I saw Harrison James, who is a previous guest on the podcast. I've got to say, and I think when we were chatting earlier on, I was saying Harrison is one of the most impressive men I've spoken to.
He is, yeah.
He is so smart.
He is. He's one of my best friends in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're associating with good people with Harrison. Harrison had a situation that those that haven't heard it on the podcast, where sexual abuse at the hands of his stepmother, and quite traumatic. But the way that he articulated it left an indelible impression on me. And then I saw Grace Tame hovering in your orbit as well. We've had her on the podcast, so I was scared before I got Grace on the podcast. You don't muck around with Grace. But what a fantastic person she's doing and the work that she's doing.
She is. She's wonderful as well. Yeah. I'm very, very lucky to know so many wonderful survivors as well. And my co-founder Brenda as well. She's another example.
Brenda Lynn, who people may or may not have heard, and we won't go into the details, but what she went through was just horrific. And I've had some communications with her, and I'm just amazed by her resilience and strength.
She is. Yeah, she's incredible.
So what a power team you've got together.
Yeah, we've been really lucky. And pretty much all of the people involved in the Survivor Hub are survivors as well. Like it's probably 75% of the people involved, and obviously all the facilitators are all survivors, and they're all just incredible, and I learn something from them every single time I speak to them.
Well, I've learnt doing the podcast, speaking to people like Harrison and Grace and that, and yourself about Survivor, and that's the narrative that you want out. You don't want to be bracketed as victims, and survivors is about moving forward.
Yeah, I think lots of people have lots of philosophies on it, and there are a lot of survivors who call themselves victim survivors, or the people who call themselves victims, or whatever it may be. But for me, the reason why I choose to use the word survivor is because I don't want to be anything of his. Like, I don't want to be a victim of his. I don't want to be connected to him at all. I don't think about him at all. The Survivor Hub has nothing to do with him. I'm not going to let him have any credit or anything for what I've been able to do with myself after the Survivor Hub. So I choose to use the word survivor when I talk about my experiences. It's
a mindset, but it's a very powerful mindset to have. So I understand where you're coming from there. We want to talk about your childhood so people get a sense of what you went through. You've got some pretty impressive parents too.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
You've walked in the shadow of some very, how do I describe it? Well, your mum's Tanya Plibersek, a well-known federal politician, and your father, Michael Coutts-Trotter, who I think is a fascinating story in what he's gone through. We will talk more about your parents later on in the podcast, but you've got your power friends and you've got your power parents as well.
Yeah, I'm very lucky.
Yeah. Well, you might say that, and there's probably things I wish my parents were this or that. But no matter how good your parents are, you always have complaints against them. Tell us about your childhood. What was your childhood like?
That's a good question. I had a beautiful, very happy childhood. I think I'm really lucky to have both of my parents in doing the roles that they do, because I've been really lucky to meet some really incredible people like throughout my entire life, and that includes a lot of other politicians and a lot of like public figures and celebrities and musicians and things like that. People who my parents have met through work or whatever it may be. And I've also felt really lucky to have always gone along to events, particularly with my mum. Like, she's always been taking us to events since I was a baby. My first ever protest that I went to, I was probably about 1 year old, and there's a photo of mum holding me as a baby, these big headphones on.
I'm not sure if it was an Indigenous protest or protest for South Sydney.
It was South Sydney.
Because I saw all these, I saw a photo of that.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, good on you.
It was. That was that was the first one that they can remember, but I obviously would have gone when mum was pregnant with me as well, so it depends where you count it from. But yeah, that's there's a photo of that. You've seen that photo, have you? Yeah. And so we've just always been going to things like that. We've just always been so lucky to be really social justice oriented from birth, and so I think it makes a lot of sense that I became a social worker and that I do the Survivor Hub and the kind of things that I'm doing, because I've been raised like that.
It seems a natural progression, but that sense of social justice, it's a good thing to have instilled in you at a very young age. Yeah,
from both my parents as well. They're both incredibly empathetic people, and my mum always says one of her favourite things about my dad is that he's so curious and he loves to meet people and talk to them and ask them questions about themselves, and that's something that I really like to do as well, just to meet people and to learn about their lives.
Well, it sounds like the siblings.
Yeah, 2 younger brothers.
Yeah.
There's Joe, and he's about to turn 21 in a few days. And there's Louis, and he's 15. Yep. And Louis is my little baby because I'm 10 years older than him.
Right.
And they're both just incredibly thoughtful, warm, loving brothers. They obviously, annoy me so much sometimes. Get on my nerves. But particularly Joe, he really knows how to get under my skin.
That's what siblings are for.
Yep, and they're really good at it. But I just couldn't be luckier to have those 2 as my brothers. Like, they're just gorgeous, and they come to all the Survivor Hub events that we have, and they're so supportive, and they're always asking me questions, and they're really involved and just so incredibly supportive of me, which is really
I think given what you've been through, and we'll obviously talk about it, but having that support network, how important that is.
Yeah.
You must look back and what happened to you was a horrible situation, but the fact that you had that support, that family support, and some people don't have that support. So I'm sure you can look at it.
I'm incredibly privileged to have had the support that I did, and I think particularly through the court process as well. That it almost killed me, that court process. And my parents came every single day to court, and they have obviously incredibly busy jobs, and they would bring their paperwork with them and do work, from the witness room. They'd be outside the room. They weren't allowed to come in because they were also witnesses. Yep. So they'd have to wait outside in the waiting room. And they came every single day, and the court process was, I think it was over a month, and they were there the whole time with me. It's
painful. And we're going to talk about the court process from your point of view, but I've seen court from my career in the police. How it can just drag on and traumatise victims and that. And I want to speak to you about that, because I think you've made some very valid points about that and what I've heard you talk about. So you're a 15-year-old girl. You're at school. You're getting awards at school. You're a bit of a
bit of a nerd.
a bit of a nerd.
Yep.
But sometimes nerds can turn out to be cool. Like later on, you look at the nerd and then they become the cool dude. Or
I don't worry about being cool. It's okay. I'll just.
Things you organised a Women's Day, International Women's Day at the school, and your sense of social justice really came across. What drove you there? Was that from your parents?
I think we'd had a few International Women's Day assemblies before, and I think it was a year that the teacher who organised it wasn't there, and I was just like, well, we're a girls' school, a public girls'
Yeah.
school, we need to have an International Women's Day event. And so I organised that. I can't really remember any of the process of it, to be honest, but it's one of many examples of me just doing really nerdy things at school. Like we started an environmental club as well at school, and we wanted to do recycling and things like that. And I was really involved in like debating and public speaking, and I would coach the younger girls at school, and I was always helping out with the teachers and all the extracurricular events and things like that. I would just throw myself into anything that the teachers told me to, and just see how it went. You were the nerd. I was really nerdy. Yeah.
Good on you.
Yeah.
You were 15 when you met the person that brought the drama to your life. Tell us about that. Where did you meet him? How did you meet him? And what happened from there?
I met him through a friend who was one of his really close friends.
Right.
And it was just one of those, like, I think I saw him on social media and he saw me or something, and we exchanged social media and we were messaging online or something like that. Knowing this now, it's a red flag, but it progressed really, really quickly. It was one of those things that
the love bomber type.
Love bombing,
yeah.
So it went really, really quickly, and I was, entirely entrenched, enveloped in his life within a month. Like, it was just so quick, and obviously now,
you look
when
back
you're an
and
adult,
they're red flags.
Yeah. And I think it's something that I talk to my friends about sometimes when I see my friends and I think maybe they're being love bombed. I say to them, I know you're wonderful because I've known you for a really long time, but he's just met you last week. He doesn't know that you're wonderful yet. So his behaviours would make sense if he'd known you for a really long time, but he hasn't had that chance to meet you yet. Yeah. And that's what I would have, liked to have told my 15-year-old self. Like, he all your friends and people, they see all your qualities, but he doesn't know you yet. So all of this love bombing, it's a way of, gaining control over you. It's not a reflection of who you are or anything like that.
That's an interesting way to look at it. And I think, lessons learned, or you look back and you see that. I've always, not looking at it from the extent that what happened to you. But I look at just when you're making comments on, is that relationship going to work or not? When you see someone, it might be the other way. It might be the female or it might be the male, that I've just met the best person in the life. We are life partners. This is just a kindred spirit and over the moon in the first week. Yeah, it might be the rare cases that happens, but it can also be an indicator that burn very bright and it's going to get ugly when it dims.
Yeah, a lot of the time it's control. It's about control. Yeah.
You've talked about the love bombing to start with. How quickly did the relationship develop between you two?
Incredibly quickly. Like it was, within a month or two, just completely, in his life, and had met his family and all of his friends, and I was going to all of his sports like every week and spending hours with his family. That was something that my parents had a real issue with, was I would spend heaps and heaps of time with his family and then I'd stop spending as much time with my family. And it wasn't just a normal kind of spending time naturally. It was like I was with him all the time, and whatever he wanted to do, I was doing with him.
So you became submissive in a way to his needs, or he was controlling that classic coercive control type situation.
There were a lot of elements of that, and I kind of felt like I always had to be around him. I don't know if I knew it at the time, but obviously done a lot of reflecting and counselling since then, and I think a lot of me wanting to spend time with him was, well, if he's with me, then he's not going to be with somebody else.
Okay. From a fifth, you look back now at the wise old age of what, 25?
Yeah, almost,
Okay. At 15, it all makes sense, your thought process that, I'll keep him away from the other girls by spending time with him.
Yeah.
How did he do it? Like, how did he get that control? Was it sort of suggestions, or did he sulk if you didn't do what he wanted to do? What was I know those type of people.
Yeah.
I know how they sort of operate. I'm just wondering if he was that same.
He was the very manipulative, cunning type of person. It started off, with that love bombing, and it started off with very affectionate, very loving, lots of, compliments and showering me and with, just love and affection and all those sorts of things. But embarrassingly, looking back, that didn't last for very long. Like, it was probably genuinely only about a month or two.
Right.
And then a different way of controlling me, which was I wasn't good enough for anybody else. And, you know, he would tell me all the time that I was fat, that I was, you know, that I was disgusting, that people only liked me because they wanted to get close to my mum.
Yep.
He told me that a lot, that everybody only wanted something out of me. So if somebody wanted to be friends with me, they were just trying to do it for their own gain. You know, they wanted to be close to my mum, or they wanted to, they had a crush on me or something like that.
Yeah.
So it was, it started off with like sort of love and affection, but very quickly turned into sulking.
How did that go for your self-esteem? Because that would be hard at 15, having someone, you know, pushing that narrative on you.
Yeah, well,
it feeds into all your insecurities right from the start.
Yeah,
it?
and you know, imagine a 15-year-old girl, like we're you're probably all already insecure about, you know, our body and things like that about ourselves. It was really bad. I lost a lot of weight. I didn't eat a lot of the time, and I didn't know that it was noticeable, but I remember Mum telling me years later on, that I would say something like, "Oh, don't tell him that I ate this piece of cake," or like, "He wouldn't like this if I did this." And I would say things like that around my family. And I knew that I wasn't meant to kind of be eating. And there were times where he would drive past McDonald's with me, and he would say, I bet you want McDonald's, fatty. And I would say, no, I don't want it. And he would be like, well, I'm getting it anyway, and then go and buy it, and then like make me eat it and kind of watch me. And I think that was just sort of a like humiliation ritual for him, just to embarrass me. And it was heaps of things like that. And it wasn't just about my looks, it was about like my intelligence. And he would say I wasn't actually as nice as people thought I was, and I wasn't smart, and I only got opportunities because, you know, people were scared of my parents and they gave them to me for that reason. And it was kind of the opposite of everything I thought about myself. And I think there were times where I would challenge it, and there were times where it was much easier just to accept it and just think, well, he's got my best interests. He wants me to be, you know, this really good big person. And a really easy example of that was if he was talking and I got excited and cut in and said something over the top of him, he would make me say, he'd make me wait 5 minutes. He would time it, 5 minutes on the clock, and then I would have to say, excuse me, and then I was allowed to talk. And he told me that he was teaching me to be polite because my parents never taught me manners. And I actually genuinely for a time thought, oh my gosh, like I'm really bad mannered, and I need to learn these things and be polite.
And I hope us talking about it, like people are listening and can look out for these type of things. But the classic love bombing right at the start, and totally the emotions totally out of context with what the situation is. Extreme reactions
to really minor things.
And then this attacking your self-esteem. And that's the cruelest thing. That's that mental manipulation that they're capable of doing.
And you start doing it to yourself too. Like, he didn't need to keep doing it because I started to police myself.
It's a war by attrition. Just wearing you down, taking away your self-confidence. Did at any point, and it's easy sitting here now and looking back in hindsight and go, how was I so stupid when we're going through all the red flags? But when it's switched from the love bombing to the manipulative and demeaning way that he was treating you, and the attacking your confidence, did at that point in time did you speak to anyone about it, or was it so personal that you thought, oh?
It was. I didn't talk to anybody about it, and he also isolated me from all my friends at this point. So I didn't have. My friends were still there in a way, but they weren't there was not that closeness anymore. And he isolated me from my parents too, so I was too scared to tell anybody. And sometimes I would realise, and I was like, this is wrong, this is not right, I shouldn't be feeling like this. And I would crack and I would say something, and I would say, you can't treat me like this, I'm leaving, like this is not right. And he would just switch right back to that love and affection straight away. And I was just chasing that feeling the whole relationship. Like I would have done anything to get that feeling of love and affection back.
Get his approval.
Yeah. So as soon as I got it, I'd be like, okay, everything's fine again. And then he would sort of slowly move back to that manipulative, controlling, aggressive type.
At what stage did he start apologising for his behaviour and go, I'm sorry, I won't do that again, I understand? Did he find any middle ground there, or was it control?
I don't know if he actually ever apologised.
Yeah.
I think, he may have apologised when he's done really bad things. Yeah. And I remember him buying me a bunch of flowers and writing me a card. And I it probably came with the word sorry.
Yeah.
But that was sort of his way of apologising. But I think a lot of it was just he would just stop using the really violent, aggressive, manipulative behaviour and just be kind to me for a bit and, come here, I'm sorry. And he would make me cry all the time, and then he would wipe up those tears as well. So,
so he would break you down for whatever way, the mental manipulation, break you down, and then he'd be comforting, here, I'm here to save you.
Yeah.
I know you laugh at it, but look, I think if you stay in life long enough, we've all been in relationships that weren't quite right or toxic. But when you look back and think, how did I fall for that?
Yeah.
But you don't have a clear vision at the time, do you?
No.
And we're judging you as a 15-year-old. Geez, I wouldn't like people to look at my life as a 15-year-old, all the mistakes that you make.
Yeah.
Was there anything in his circle of friends or family that gave you warning signs? Was there what type of thing did you pick up there?
His friends actually told me to leave him a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And in the very end of all of this, when we're talking about around court time, a lot of them have never spoken to him ever again. And they there were people who would warn me, and they would this isn't right. And sometimes there'd be excuses, he's really stressed for exams, but still, Anna, you can't experience this. And I also remember a few times his mum telling him off.
Yep.
And there was one time he did something, can't remember what it was, and he used to drive his mum's car all the time.
Yeah.
And she said to him, no, because of what you have done to Anna. It was something I think he was meant to drive me home, and instead he dropped me 2 kilometres from home and got me to walk the rest of the way. And I think his mum found out, whether I told her, I'm not sure. And she said, well, you're not using the car anymore because you can't treat Anna like that's not right. And she told me that, and she said, when you feel like you've forgiven him, I'll let him use the car again.
Right.
And so, of course, immediately I said, no, it's fine, I've forgiven him.
So, just to get a sense of how it evolves, because I'm learning stuff from what you're saying here, and I think it's a good lesson for everyone on how a relationship can start off well, or seemingly well, and then go bad very quickly. How long were you with him for, and when did it get to the point where, we've got the love bombing, then the manipulation, taking you away from your friends and family, criticising you, attacking your self-confidence? When did it get to the point where it was physical abuse and the things that happened? And look, I know reliving it is, and I apologise up front, reliving it, so you just tell me what you're comfortable talking about. We don't have to go into specific details, but when did it sort of cross the line to point of no return?
Yeah. I can't remember exactly, and I think there was a time where I did remember that because I had to talk about it in court a lot.
Yeah.
I think it was early on, it would have been easily within the first 6 months. It could have been within the first 3 months.
Yeah.
And it started off really small. So it started off with things like pinching me, twisting a tea towel and whipping me, but it would actually leave welts on my legs.
Yeah.
I found a photo on my phone of a red handprint on my leg that he'd slapped me so hard that he left a full perfect handprint on my leg. Things like that. That was really early on, but the more violent type of it was at the very end of the relationship mostly. And that was when I was leaving him, and he knew that I was leaving him, and he was losing control of me. And so it really escalated around that time.
The violent actions of the hand slap and all that was his way of disciplining you or lashing out? It wasn't.
Yeah, he would make it a joke. It was always really funny. It was never, and if I was like, wow, you've really hurt me here. Like,
Yeah.
look at my hand, like this, you know, oh, you're so, like, so sensitive. You're being so sensitive about this. It's a game, Anna. It's just a joke. And
Yeah.
if I said something that upset him, he'd like kick me off the bed onto the ground,
Yeah.
like if it was sitting on the bed or something, and just be laughing because, you know, like, well, you've annoyed me and this is how I get you back. So, yeah, it was pretty much always just pushed as just being a joke.
Yeah.
It's
And
just
that's
games.
Did that confuse you? And it's like, it's easy to look back now and go, have a better understanding. But when you're in the thick of it, did you think, am I misreading this? Is he just playing around, or is he just being overly rough? And
Yeah, I did. I just thought that it was a joke, and the times that I thought he'd taken it too far, I just thought, well, I'm just going to accept that it's a joke and just move past, smooth over, because if I say something, it'll get worse.
Yeah.
Like, he'll tell me that I'm being insensitive, or he'll hurt me worse, or whatever it may be.
did it ever get to the point, and I've seen this with the history of domestic violence situations, where the man will lash out on the women, and then all of a sudden they'll come back all remorseful and say, I'm sorry, I will never do that again. Did it get to that point?
Yeah, sometimes, but a lot of the time he just would say, he would just try and make it a joke. Like, sometimes he would say sorry, but he had so much power over me at that point in time that he probably didn't even really need to apologise and be remorseful.
So when you say the power, that's because he's isolated you from your friends and family, stolen your confidence.
Taught me that I deserved it and that I couldn't do better with anybody else, and that this is what I'd be treated with anybody.
So really attacking your self-esteem.
Yeah. I would not recognise myself at 15, 16, 17. I wouldn't know that little girl. Like, I was just a shell of myself.
And almost dependent on your happiness, dependent on getting his approval.
Yeah.
It sounds like. And
Yeah.
that's where you're really stuck in that situation, because people often say, well, why don't you walk away from it? But I don't think it's that simple when you're going through it. It's easy stepping back and looking, oh, well, why didn't I just walk away? But that's not what's going through your mind at the time.
And we did, we broke up a few times, and it never lasted very long, because it just, like, it feels like a normal heartbreak, right? But probably even worse, because you just feel like you can't live without them, because they've taught you that you can't live without them. It just felt like my heart being torn from my chest.
So you're waiting for his text,
16 years old.
Please have me back, or
Well, he would come to me. I wouldn't go to him, and I would choose whether I accepted him. And when he came back, he would always have like a bunch of flowers, or he'd have a letter, or he would write me these really, really long paragraphs and like text them to me, and they were just so loving and affectionate, and probably remorseful sometimes as well, and they always worked.
I might read this wrong, and I'm possibly reading it wrong, but I always wonder about blokes that always buying big bunch of flowers to say sorry. I think there's a time and place for flowers, but the ones that always roll out the flowers and the cards and I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think he sort of ruined bunches of flowers for me. Yeah. It's associated with having done something wrong.
No more flowers for you, thank you. Did your friends pull you aside, like your closest girlfriends? Did you break contact and just not talk about it?
I was still talking to them, and I was still hanging out with them, but I think I was just so all consumed with him that I probably just really annoyed them. Yeah. And I've complete empathy for how annoying that would have been, to watch me go back repeatedly to someone who treated me so horribly, and just to be making excuses every time. And I've had so many friends since who've experienced domestic violence or been in relationships where I've been like, come on, you deserve so much better. Yeah. And I understand that it's a bit frustrating, and I think they were frustrated.
I think we've all had that, the friends that you're saying, walk away from this relationship. Yeah. And I am, and you sit down and you have a long discussion with them, and it could be male, female or whatever. I'm walking away from this relationship. And then you think, yes, at last they're doing something, looking after themselves. And 2 weeks later, oh no, we're back. He said sorry, or she said sorry.
Yeah.
So it's the failings of humans, isn't it?
So I think that was really like what was happening. And then I think from memory, most of the kind of like pushback that I got, people saying to me, you should leave him, were actually people around him. and they knew him really well.
I saw one of your teachers spoke about their concern for you, and a teacher that had seen you all through high school, so knew the type of person and how you were so bubbly and vibrant, and then you became withdrawn in the relationships and that. Was there any avenue to talk there, or did anyone try to reach out to you?
My teachers. Yeah, I think that was Miss Paramore who you're talking about from the Australian Story. She was my history teacher for years.
Yeah.
I didn't talk to any of them at the time. I've since spoken to a lot of them about it. I have a really close relationship with used to be my French teacher, Miss Chrysalides, as well. And I see her regularly.
Yeah.
And I've spoken to her in depth about it. And she basically is just really heartbroken about it, and she also said to me that she wishes that she'd known and she could have helped me around the HSC as well, with my exams, and because that was just a very, very impossible time. That was when the violence escalated, and I was still having to sit down and do these exams, and I got a fine ATAR, probably a good ATAR, but I could have done a lot better if I'd been, if he'd left me alone.
Being able to focus.
Yeah, if I'd... Yeah.
Your parents, now your mum, I heard her say when she was speaking about what you went through that she would sometimes see bruises and you'd make excuses for the bruises. Your dad, high up in the public servant and has a lot of life experience. Like, they're all people that are fairly astute.
Yeah.
At what point in time were they starting to drill you down and go, what's going on?
I told Mum 2 or 3 weeks after I left him for the last time. So I told her pretty quickly, which a lot of people don't do. And I told Dad probably just a little bit after, but Mum and I were away together for a weekend just after I'd finished all my exams. Yeah. She had a work thing in Adelaide, so I went with her and we were having dinner and I told her about it.
Right.
And I tell my parents everything. I'm very incredibly open with my parents. Like, some of my friends are like, you probably don't need to tell your parents that. Like, actually, you can, you don't need to. But I love to tell my parents things, and I consider them my friends. Like, I share a lot with them. But I did not want them to know, because I knew if they knew, I was never going to be able to see him ever again. And I wanted to be able to make that decision for myself.
Okay.
I knew I wasn't ready.
That's interesting, because I was wondering, because I was thinking your parents, and that's the way they come across it, they would have that open narrative with you. But you held back in part because you wanted to have the moment you've told them, you knew that was it.
Yeah, I waited until I knew it was done before I told them.
Okay, because what was going through your mind? Did you think he's going to change, or you're not thinking clearly? What's
Yeah, well, he told me he was going to.
Yeah.
He would say, he was stressed because he had his final exams, and then he was stressed because he wanted to get into university, and then he was stressed because he had his university exams, and he had a job interview, and there was always a reason why he was stressed, and it was always kind of explained away. And so I think something that a lot of survivors of domestic violence have in common is that we will always be able to find good in people, and that we believe in the best in people. And I believed in the best in him, and I saw good in him. I would really, really, really struggle to tell you one good thing about him now. Yeah. But at the time, he was funny, and he could be kind, and he really loved his family. He really loved his nan. I thought, well, he's capable of love, but I wouldn't be able to say the same things about him now anyway. But I just sort of believed. I kind of had hope for him that he could be a good person and that he could be respectful of me.
Well, that's the way we all want to go through life. You want to look at people and think there's good in everyone. Sadly, I'm looking at him. I'm looking at it from life experience and from a policing point of view, and it's a worry.
Yeah,
it's a worry that the way he's reacting. A dangerous time in domestic situations is when the partner leaves, and that's sometimes when it escalates. And there's research that shows that the most dangerous period is the time that you leave.
Yeah.
Were you concerned when you finally stood up to him and said, I'm going to leave?
Well, I didn't know about the statistics, and I also didn't know I was experiencing DV, so I wasn't concerned in that way.
Yep.
But I noticed an escalation in his behaviour. And I think I talk about this a lot with people who are leaving domestic violence because
Yeah.
I also do like counselling as my job,
Yep.
and I have a lot of interactions with survivors through the Survivor Hub.
Yeah.
And I always say to them, I say, there's going to be a moment where you can feel that you're not under his spell anymore, and
Yeah.
you're actually just going to start to get the ick. You're going to start getting disgusted by his behaviour.
Yeah.
And I remember that switch in me. And it was during my HSC exams, and he came over at like 7 a.m.
Yeah.
And I said to him, I'm not talking to you. I'm going to the library. I have an exam tomorrow. It's really important that I go well in these exams. It's my final exams. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
And he was just crying and begging and I just looked at him and I just thought, I don't know how this ever worked. He just looks absolutely pathetic right now. He just looks so pathetic. And I just said to him, no, leave.
Yeah.
And he just kept crying. And I said, okay, well, I'm leaving. And I just left him at my parents' house and went to the library. I would have never done that before that time.
Yeah.
Ever.
But that was that turning point.
Yeah. I'm sick of you. I'm not falling for this anymore.
I can just picture it. And
Yeah.
They disgust me. I can imagine the manipulation he's trying. Okay, well,
Yeah.
I can't live without you.
Yeah.
Even make that type of comments, I would
And
imagine.
he used violence against me after that time. So
Yeah.
it wasn't that he'd actually, there was no actual change.
Yeah.
Because if there was an actual change, he would have been genuinely remorseful, crying, and never used violence again.
Yeah. Okay, you've told your mum. I would imagine once you've told your mum, and I heard your mum say, I want to kill him,
Yep.
which is a natural reaction. I don't
Yep.
think she, in defence of your mum, she didn't intend to, but that's
No.
what she said she wanted to do.
Yeah.
And your dad would have been told. How did you as a family then decide to deal with the situation? Because I would imagine it was devastating for your parents.
Yeah.
When they found out that you'd been suffering like this. How did that play out?
My parents were so wonderful in that they just knew to ask me what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So they never told me. They had never had any expectations of me. They never said that they needed me to do any, particular thing.
Yeah.
They encouraged me to access counselling. They knew that I would benefit from counselling. I didn't straight away. I didn't access counselling, and I was quite resistant to it. I sort of thought I'm fine for a few months. Immediately after I'd left, and I decided with my parents that I wasn't going to go to the police. I didn't think I would be believed in the court process. I knew vaguely what it was going to be like, and I didn't want that for myself. But the police contacted me.
Yep.
They actually first contacted my parents, which is a little bit bizarre, but they knew them through work.
Right.
And so they contacted my parents, and they said, just letting you know, we found out this thing about this person, my ex.
Yep.
And we're investigating, and we're just letting you know that your daughter's kind of involved in that because she was in a relationship with him. And my parents sort of started to think, well, I wonder if Anna's experienced it and to what extent, and kind of, I hadn't told them everything.
Yeah.
And this was really, really early too. And my mum called me and she said, the police are going to ring you. But they contacted me and talked to me about it, and I went in for an interview. And from there, I decided to report to the police. But initially really, really didn't want to.
Yeah. And I think it's important from a person that's suffered what you had suffered to feel like you've got control. And I think your parents' response was right, because the one thing when you've lost control and you've been abused is then being told you've got to do this and got to do that. So it's important that you've got control over the direction. Going to see the police, and I always get a smile on my face when I hear good police stories, that if the way they reacted and that. But that would have been traumatic for you, because if you're making a complaint to the police, you've got to sit down, you've got to go through the details, and they'll be asking you questions, and it takes an extraordinarily long time.
Yep.
How was the process for you?
It was mixed.
Yep.
I think that they did the best that they could do within the parameters of the role.
Yep.
Particularly Monica.
Yep.
I have nothing but good things to say about Monica, and also another police officer called Tom.
Yeah.
And there were other police officers who involved who I think were a little bit less experienced than Monica and Tom. And I liked them. I thought they were good people. I thought they were kind. But my experiences with them were not as good as my experiences with Monica and Tom, which were just like gold star.
Yeah.
Really, they just, I have an issue with a lot of police. I have an issue with the
I.
police force, and there's a lot of things I could say about the police, and I also want to recognise the privilege that I have being who I am, my parents, being white, being cisgendered, and all of those things, like so much privilege, and that privilege is a large part due to, that is how I got this good experience with the police. I understand that. But it was still the police and, legal and court process it just, it almost killed me. Like it was just the worst thing I've ever been through. It was so much worse than being in the relationship. It was just horrific.
Yeah, and I want to talk about the court matter, and because I think there's definitely room for improvement in that process. But from a police point of view, and now that you've gone to the police, that the purpose of making the complaint is that they're going to investigate it, and then the likelihood, and it would have been explained to you, that would potentially go to court, and if it's defended, you're going to have to give evidence. From your personal point of view, so you're 17, 18 at this stage?
Yeah, 17, I think. Yeah.
And when you stepped away from him, did life look different for you after you've made that decision?
Well, everything, the healing process just gets completely put on pause through the court. Yeah. Like when you're in court. And so I would say that I didn't begin to heal or recover for like probably 3 years after I left him. Yep. And I even, I don't have a lot of memories of a lot of time around that because I just was completely in survival.
Yeah, it makes me sad because that's an exciting time of anyone's life, isn't it?
First year of uni, graduating.
You've got the freedom, you're coming out and the world is just, how good's this?
Yeah,
and there would have been portions of that you missed because of what you'd been through.
Yeah, I went, I had a gap year and I went on a holiday and the police were ringing me through my holiday. I was in Europe, solo traveling, and I was getting caught and every time no caller ID would pop up on my phone, you just feel so sick. Yeah. It's just a universal survivor experience. Yeah. You just feel so sick, and it was always like police, courts. I'd be checking emails the whole time. Can you come back early? We want to do court now. Like, will you? It's just everything.
That's not what you want. No.
And freshly 18, just trying to enjoy my independence and be a young person, and I have this huge legal process looming over. It was horrific. Yeah,
it takes away from it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We might take a break now. When we come back for part 2, I want to talk in depth about the court experience because I think we haven't got it right completely in the courts, and if people talk about it, maybe other people might start to listen. Talk about and it's quite interesting how the genesis of what the Survivor Hub was formed, and I want you to tell me that story about where you met Beck at the front of the court, and other things that you're doing. I hear that you're even I was listening to you. It was a conference, for want of a better word, but talking about restorative justice and different things. So much to talk about. So we'll have a break. I apologise for making you relive a bad period of your life, but I think it's important that we are talking about it because I'm learning things from you in this chat that we're having now.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's important.
Back shortly.